What's going on, miners, and welcome back to the Hobbyist Miner channel. Well, we are here for episode 5 of Meet the Miner, and we have a special guest that I've been looking forward to sitting down with for quite some time. We do have Not Your Normal Miner. Welcome, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, I have the reason I've been super excited, and we'll get into it here in a little bit, is Not Your Normal Miner is not only a YouTube content creator in the mining space, but he also doesn't just do mining as his everyday job. He actually works at a crypto mining farm, which is amazing. I've been watching his videos for quite some time, and I'm eager to really get into it and pick his brain and see and learn a little bit more about how this is done at a enterprise level, which is, I think, is great. So are you, sir, ready to dive into some questions?
I am very, very excited. Let's get into it.
All right, awesome. So it looks like, based off of my research, I always like to do my homework on my guests a little bit. You've been creating YouTube content for about 3 years now. So is that when you got started mining, or did you start mining well before YouTube content?
So I started mining and then I started YouTube content shortly after. So been doing mining and YouTube for just about 3 years now. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And what originally brought you into the mining space? From what I've seen and learned, you started at home miner, which is where most of us start. What got you into mining? Was it a friend, family member, just an itch? What got you there?
So one day I was hanging out at a buddy's house and there was a computer sitting on the ground with a box fan on it. I asked him what he was doing and he said he was mining Ethereum. And here we are, years later. One GPU started into another one. We started the YouTube channel, started teaching people,
Mm-hmm.
and we were fortunate enough to be able to be here earlier this year, brought on to work on a large-scale farm. So it's been quite a fun journey.
Oh, I can only imagine. So, you're a home miner yourself. You have your own personal rigs. What does your current mining setup look like? What are you mining? What type of rigs are you mining? What type of hash rate are you putting down on a personal level?
Yeah. So just trying to get as much Ethereum as possible currently. Um, Personally, a little under 1 gigahash. We're probably about 800 megahash currently on Ethereum.
Okay.
Um, and then we are mining, doing some testing and things. We're mining some Ethereum Classic, mining some Raven coin as
Mm-hmm.
well, with a couple different rigs there. Um, so in total, we're in total a little over one. Everything was on Ethereum, a little
Yeah.
over 1 gigahash.
Fantastic. That's awesome. So, is there a certain GPU that you kind of gravitate towards, or do you have a little bit of everything?
We have a rig of 1660 Ti's. I've got a rig that has a couple 3080s NVIDIA FEs, as well as a
Ooh.
Zotac Trinity 3080, and a couple 1050 Ti's, a couple of our original 1070 Ti's from back in the day when we first got started as well.
Okay, fantastic. So, you started this hobby, 3 years ago with mining, and you kind of jumped into YouTube as well, and going back, checking out kind of your some of your original videos. You were kind of building out your basement. Is that what it was? Your basement that I saw in a way that most people wouldn't. So kind of explain what you built in your basement for your mining hobby.
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough there was already kind of a shell of a room in the basement, and that used to be there was a wood burning stove in there.
Okay.
Well, when everything was out, we kind of created a mining room, little hot box, so you would say, in
Yeah.
the back of it as well to help remove heat. So we did an electric upgrade, went from 100 to 200 amp panel at the house, and ran some electric over there, and just tried to tried to scale up the best we could and teach people, show people what we were doing, whether it was right or wrong. Let people see, our adventure there.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see kind of like your avenue with myself trying to build my own kind of crypto mining room in my own basement. So I thought I'd ask you kind of having your own dedicated space at home. What are some must-dos that you would have for the mining community and must-don'ts? Like, what would you recommend highly doing and saying don't even try this when at home?
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, we had at one time we had mining rigs in multiple rooms at the house before we had our remote garden location, so to say,
Okay.
in the basement. And you got to have a way to remove the heat. Even if you have enough electric for all these rigs, you got to
Mhm.
be able to remove the heat.
So heat's probably the biggest one. What are some things that you ran into when you were doing it yourself at home that you learned not to do? Was there anything that stands out to you as I made this mistake or something like that?
Not having enough fresh air come in.
Okay.
Um, Not being able to get enough fresh air to our room was the biggest thing that we found. Because as soon as you would open the door to our room, temperatures would be able to get even better, and it was just because it was pulling in more fresh air.
So at your home setup, are you doing more of like a passive intake system and then with a pretty beefy exhaust? Okay, very cool. Yeah, in my experience, I've redone my airflow before this room's even finished about 3 times. Just kind of learning my lesson along the way and tried to control intake. And finally, in the latest rendition of things, which I'll have some videos out here soon, went straight with passive intake and just a boatload of exhaust. And it's definitely paying off already. So I could totally understand that. If anyone, I've had a few people ask me some questions about it, and finally I just say, hey, if you can afford a shed, do a shed, because it's 10 times easier than trying to control that airflow in your house, like having that as something in your home, which I definitely think is important. So how did you give us a little bit of kind of a story along the way of how you went from, hey, I'm a home miner as a hobby to working now for a crypto farm? Were you before you were working for a farm, were you in the technology space, or kind of how did we go from hobby to career?
Well, early on, when we started our YouTube channel, as a lot of other YouTubers do, we watched a lot of different videos. We were on a live stream from a person called DigiGold,
Yeah.
and during that stream, I saw someone post that they were kind of local to me.
Hmm.
I tracked them down and found out that they were starting a mining farm, GPU
Wow.
mining farm. I tried to tour their facility. I tried to get down and shoot some video for the
Mm-hmm.
channel. Talked with the owners. It didn't really work out at that time. We
Okay.
talked for a few months after that, and this is, early 2018. Um, Fast forward to December of 2020, and all of a sudden I get a phone call from the gentleman saying, "Hey, why don't you come down, check things out? We've got maybe a position that you might like." And before that, I was selling internet phones. So I said, "Okay, let's check it out." And all the rest is history. The beginning of January, they added me to the team, and I've been out there ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, my next question was kind of like, what were you doing before that? So you were within the tech space to a degree, but it definitely was a night and day. Which that is really awesome to think of the fact of like your career at working in a crypto mining farm started with your YouTube. Like YouTube introduced you to it, which I think must be amazing to be able to do what your hobby and your passion is day to day, which is, I think, fantastic. Um, so that being said, you were selling phones and internet phones, and you get this call, and hey, I'd like you to come down, to work in the crypto mining farm. Are you currently married or have kids or a significant other that you kind of had to explain this career change to, or even friends and family?
Oh, most certainly. When I told my wife I was going down to take a look at things, she was kind of taken off guard. But once again, we've been mining for a couple years, so I've
Yeah.
been working on her, and at the time, January, December, crypto was really popping at that time. So she was kind of like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But after she's toured the facility and seen things, she understands. Yeah, this is real.
Yeah, I think once you start to put some numbers and dollar signs behind it, it's a little bit easier for people to swallow. I think a lot of hobbies are very hard to explain to significant others if they're not completely in the know. When it's just like, oh, I'm doing this hobby or I'm pursuing this YouTube content creation, but there's no like dollar sign behind it. That makes it lucrative from a time perspective or an energy, and so I definitely think that's great. So how do you explain to friends and family what you do? Because crypto mining is a newer term to the traditional public. It's been around for your niche hobbyists for quite some time now, but how do you explain to somebody you've haven't seen in a few years, or you're at a bar and you say something and you bring it up? How do you explain to them, like, this is what I do for a living?
A lot of times even though we're the majority of things that you will see in our videos are GPU mining, I say, do you know anything about Bitcoin? And most
Hmm.
people say yes. Well,
Hmm.
I say we are, we not necessarily, which now we currently are doing some Bitcoin mining, but I say we are a cryptocurrency mining farm, and that sparks interest. Heads kind of turn to the side, and uh, and then we show a couple pictures and go from there.
So pictures usually sell it, huh? It's usually the pictures are needed to kind of help people sink it in a little bit.
Certainly, and even then, the pictures don't do it justice.
I bet. I can only imagine. So I think that's a perfect segue. Not Your Normal Miner provided me a number of pictures of the crypto mining farm, excuse me, that he currently works at, and these are like this is like miner porn, to be honest with you. So I'm going to bring them up, and we're kind of going to go through them, and I'm going to hit him up with some questions. What is this? What is that? And allow him to kind of answer those to the best of his ability. So let's go ahead here. Bring that up. Here we go. So our first picture, tell us what we're looking at here exactly.
So this would be in our main GPU section.
Okay.
This is the exhaust fans. There's 9 fans, I believe, on this wall.
Wow. And any chance off the top of your head, what kind of CFM these big things put down?
I want to say we're 20,000
Wow. That's
each of those fans. Yeah.
that's insane. So without seeing this entire room, how big, with the picture wise, how big would you say this room is, and how many, just guesstimate, no big deal, and how many cards would you say are in this room, or maybe mining rigs, off the top of your head?
In this room particular, there's a good 400 probably mining rigs, 400
Wow.
rigs.
Wow, that's incredible. So on the flip side of this room, is it intakes then that you would see parallel to the other side of like intake vents, passive intake vents?
We have 2 different sections here. This section here actually has a water wall attached to it. Um,
Wow.
the water wall is first attempt at cooling.
Yeah.
In our second GPU room, it is more of open, just an entire wall of filters.
Okay. Very cool. All right, cool. So let's see what else we got here. So this looks like some eye candy. I assume this is with, of course, with the lights off here, and what looks like we're looking at ASIC miners here. Is that correct?
We just had a 1.5 megawatt expansion.
Wow.
So this is the first ASICs that we've been bringing online in that room.
Okay. And what type of ASICs are these? Do you recall?
We've got some L3 Plus and S9s.
Okay. And wow, the amount of power that just that picture right there, like those are probably what, if you took a guess, like 1,500 to 2,000 watts a pop?
Each shelf is a PDU.
Oh
Put
my
it in
gosh.
perspective. Each shelf is a 30 amp PDU.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So you're about 7,200 to 8,000 watts. That's crazy. Wow. It looks like Christmas, exactly what it is. Very cool.
Looks a lot like Christmas.
So, do you know kind of what made the reasoning behind the step from going from GPU to now tapping into ASIC? Was there a big determining factor, or what kind of pushed you guys to go from that direction to this one?
Well, when I first started with the farm, GPUs were what they were doing,
Mm-hmm.
what they'd been doing that for years. Well, we had some expansions planned, and Ethereum kind of changed the way that we go about things, if that makes sense. You've got ETH 2.0. I'm jamming down here pretty soon,
Yeah.
and they had planned. I mean, when they started, their goal was to get to a certain amount of electricity.
Okay.
Well, we're still working on our goal of getting that way, just not with GPUs, with ASICs now.
Got it. Got it. So, from your perspective, we have, a lot of changes coming with ETH, which, as you had previously talked about, really affects, especially from the farm side of things, really affects things dramatically. What does that do for you guys as a crypto mining farm that mostly is devolved? I mean, I would assume, and maybe I'm wrong, but mostly is ETH. What does that do for you guys, or are you pretty well diversified across the different algorithms?
So we're, our bread and butter has been Ethereum.
Yep.
AMD GPUs, 8 GB GPUs is the majority of the farm. So
Okay.
we're very fortunate with that. Instead of, early on they had a chance to get a lot of 4 GB.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
luckily they went the 8 GB route. Uh, we want to get as much Ethereum as possible with the farm. So with 1559 coming into play,
Yep.
we'll still be mining Ethereum.
Okay.
Uh, it's just for a lot of people, especially once 1559 hits, your electric rate plays a huge factor in things. And
Yeah.
we're just fortunate enough, to be in a position to where we'll mine Ethereum till we can't mine it anymore, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I know a lot of the bigger farms, and most likely this is the case with you guys. You guys have to have or use X amount of electricity, and you get a certain electricity rate, which is far better than the public has. And I assume most of your investors are looking at you keep doing what you're doing until it's not profitable. So that makes a lot of sense. Would you say what percentage of the farm would you say is Ethereum versus like? You talked about some 4 gig cards, so I assume you got some Raven coin going, some ETC. How would you, just off the top of your head, just percentage wise, what does that break down to for you guys?
Probably 95% Ethereum,
Okay.
5% Ethereum Classic currently.
Okay. That's great. Yeah. Awesome. Good to know. Okay. So let's bring back up some of our photos here because we're not done quite yet. Okay. So tell us what we're looking at this room. This room looks beautiful here. It's like perfectly clean. I see PDUs on the wall. I see vents on both sides. So give me the rundown.
So this is one of the aisleways in that new 1.5 megawatt ASIC room expansion.
Wow.
On each side, we've got 8 racks, so we've got 8 levels of ability to put machines, and we can do 1 PDU per rack. So depending on the machines,
Hmm.
will depend on how many ASICs we've got. You can get about 6 L3 pluses on a shelf, 4 S9s, depending on certain things. If you even jumped up to like S19s, you could get a couple S19s per shelf. So that's how this room was built, with the intention of being able to host machines for people.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I could see up there, top left, top right. You can see where your PDUs are plugging into. I assume there's something like an L630R or something along the lines there. But that's fantastic. So looking at this setup, would the butt end of an ASIC miner be going towards these holes in the walls there for your hot end, or how would ASIC miners be laid out in here on the shelves?
So if you're looking directly down this aisle,
Yep.
right behind you is our air intakes.
Oh,
So
okay.
the front of the ASICs will
Hmm.
be, towards the center here,
Okay.
and we would shoot the fresh air into the hot rooms or hot boxes.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, that makes complete sense. So if we were walking down this aisle to the left and the right, we would see the front end, the intakes of the A6, and then the A6 would be blowing hard left and hard right into the hot boxes on those sides there. Got it. Okay. Very cool. Man, this is like what I wish my basement looked like right here. That looks awesome. Okay, so jumping on from there, is this another room, or that can? Oh, okay, it looks like we're about a room over, and there's that hot box in there, so this could support some additional ones. Is that correct?
Yes, so this expansion basically has 3 hot rooms in it.
Okay.
This would be the first, right as you walk out of our main office.
Okay.
You can see on the left-hand side, we've got our electric panels there, and then this is aisle 1.
Okay. That's great. That's fantastic. That electric's no joke, though.
The electric is definitely no joke. We've got some 600 amp panels there, 400
Jeez.
amp panels, 30 amp breakers. That's how we break everything down. In the panels, it'll be a 30 amp breaker, and then we'll go to our plugs and then our 30 amp PDUs, and we'll label all those so that makes it a little easier for us to deal with as well.
So do you guys have like a electrician full time on staff, or is that something that you guys contract out a bit, or how does that work for you guys?
We do contract all the electrical work out.
Contract.
We don't have an
Okay.
electrician on hand yet.
Okay. I was like, oh, that's a beautiful site right there. Okay. Very cool. And I love those racks. Those racks look fantastic for airflow.
Those racks are nice. They're actually the same racks that they used originally with their GPUs.
Okay.
But you can build them however tall you want.
Yeah.
And they just worked out really great to fit ASICs in there too.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool. All right, moving on here. All right, wow. So we are looking at GPU rigs. What do we got? Are these 13, your larger ones? Are these 13 GPU rigs here?
This is in our main GPU section, and this section houses 13 GPU workers. They're all run off of, well, the majority of them would be run off the ASRock H110
Wow.
Plus.
Well, I really hope that your group bought a boatload of these back in the day when they were dirt cheap versus right now when it's like impossible to come by.
Yeah, the majority of the farm, and when I say this, like 99% of the farm is 2 years old or
Oh,
older.
fantastic. That's incredible. So let's take a look here at the rig on the far left here, just nice, close and simple here. I'm seeing we got our H110. It looks like you have a power supply on each side with a breakout board. What power supply is usually running here?
So we're running 1400 watt server power supplies on, and we'll run 2 of those per rig, and we basically will split the GPUs up 7 and 6
Okay.
on those.
So a lot of people may argue, oh, like that's 2,800, watts, and that's overkill. And I assume you try to run it something like an 80-20 percentage split for the power supplies or something like that, and just to give it plenty of room for flexibility. Versus as a home miner, you're trying to get the most out of a power supply with the amount of cards. Is that pretty accurate?
That is very accurate. One of the things that we run into though as well is our facility is basically in the middle of a field, and where we're at, we'll have some very, very high temperatures. So we make sure that we don't run, 80% rule with our electric. We make sure we keep it in there. That's what we always recommend. But on the hotter days, power supplies not running full bore as well, stay running versus ones that are fully maxed out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It's definitely how I approach things. I mean, the I have a number of extra of the HP 1200 watt power supplies, and I'm running on 240 volt here. And so for me, you know, I don't like to run those with like the fan screaming and those things boring out heat. And you can always tell when you're kind of getting near your 80 mark because they start to take off like a rocket. And so I always would rather have more than you need. You know, hey, I'm okay with having a little extra power in that rig, so I can understand it. So, okay, we got our breakout boards there. We got our 6-pin, and to the 6+2 is our yellow and black cables. Those look quite lengthy. Do you guys make those in-house, or do you order those 6 to 6+2 a little bit longer than I'm seeing?
So we will order things like that. It's just beneficial to have certain things, and we'll buy those in bulk. And a lot of that stuff will come from overseas.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. So what kind of cards are we looking at here? They all look the same. You said you're very AMD heavy. What are we looking at least in this picture here?
So we have a lot of power color GPUs. It's a majority of the farm, power color 8 gigabytes. We do have a few MSIs. We have a few, well, we've got a lot of gigabytes as well. But the issue with the gigabytes, we've switched out a lot of those OEM fans
Yeah.
on the gigabytes.
So is there one that you prefer to work on versus others in the farm day to day?
The power colors, those are true champs. Those mostly have majority of their OEM fans, and
Okay.
they just chug along.
That makes me feel real good because I got a few of those on my 4 gig rigs, and so I'm like, yeah, power color. That's fantastic. So it looks like, am I right that you guys build these the way I'm looking at it here? It looks like you're building most of these frames by hand, right? Is that via like an aluminum frame? Is that what I'm seeing?
We do. We build those frames in-house. Early on they found a design that they liked,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll pick up. We pick up that stuff at the local hardware store and just build those frames in-house.
Okay, very cool. So I see you got a numbering sequence here, 302-13-E18. Tell us kind of how is that defined and broken out there?
Oh, when you've got multiple workers, and when you got one or two at home, you really
Yeah.
don't need a labeling system. But as you
Yep.
get higher, you got to have a number system. So basically, our number system, we break things down row, rack, and aisle, and
Okay.
we label them as well for our workers. Like if there's 13 GPUs there, well,
Yep.
we'll have a 13 in there, just for different in-house types of things.
Okay. It makes plenty of sense there. Awesome. Okay, let's see what else we got here in our next picture. Okay, so we are looking at the wall of glory when it comes down to electrical here. I can only imagine. This is insane. So tell me what I'm looking at.
So in our new expansion in the ASIC room, these are 4 of the 600 amp panels, when the electricians had just kind of finished up before they put the fronts on them.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I can tell why you kind of contract that out. You know, it's that's far beyond any little homeowner would have. So that is incredible. Wow. Okay, let's see what else we got here. All right, so it looks like this room is smaller rigs. What do we got? 2, 4, 6, 8. What are the size of these here? Are these 8? Is that what I see?
These are 7 and 8 GPU workers.
Okay.
In this room, we have kind of separated the 13 GPU workers from the 7 and 8s.
Okay.
The seven and 8s were the first rigs that they built. These were their proof of concept, so to say.
Okay.
And after a while, they realized, let's put more GPUs on a motherboard,
Yeah.
and have less motherboards, less CPUs.
Hmm.
So that's what these ones are.
So these here, I'm seeing you guys are running some ATX power supplies. What type of watts are you running on those? Do you know?
Those are anywhere from 700, 750s, 850s up to 1000s. A lot of varying power supplies, just because that's what they were able to get
Okay.
early on.
Okay. And are those a different motherboard, or are those all the H110s?
So none of these are the H110s.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, these are probably the Hero 7s.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at kind of the back plate area, and I was like, that doesn't look the same. So okay, so they kind of then this setup here is definitely some of the older hardware. Would you say on the farm?
Yes, this is definitely the older hardware, first rigs that they built. These were the ones that they learned on, and ATX power supplies are
Yeah.
great, but server power supplies are better. So that's where you see the big difference there.
Yeah, I could see a few, very few. I think I see one over there with like one on the second from the top there, number 8 or in there, whatever. That one has like a server power supply. So, okay, so the 13 GPU rigs we were looking at, what cards were those? Do you recall? I know you said Power Color MSI, but were those like an RX 580 or were they higher? What were those?
Oh, 580s.
580s. Okay, and then these are older cards. You said what would you say these are?
So a lot of these look like they are our, my goodness, there's some power colors in here. And then a lot of these ones are the gigabytes as well, the 570s. So a
Okay.
lot of these rigs, if you would, as we would kind of walk down the aisle, we would
Mm-hmm.
actually see replacement fans. So after those OEM fans go bad, we actually will put a large China fan on there,
Okay.
and it's more cost efficient to do it that way than replace the fans normally.
Got it. Got it. Okay, let's see here. All right, so it looks like we're more in a build area from what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing some voltage meters bottom left. You got a keyboard hooked up. It looks like you got some newer risers as well. So kind of give me the tour of this image. What do we got going on?
This is in our office here. As we talked earlier, the majority of the farm is AMD. Well, we were able to get some NVIDIA GPUs to,
Mm-hmm.
to, to test on. So this is a 10 by 2080 um, rig, MSI,
Wow.
I believe. And this was just us testing in the office. Recently, we've started using GPURiser.com risers.
I see
So,
that.
yep, so that's what these ones are.
Wow, fantastic. That's great. Hopefully you guys now outside prior to GPUrisers.com risers, what risers were you using prior to that? Was there a brand that you guys went with or was it just kind of whatever you can get your hands on?
Of whatever we were able to get our hands on.
Okay.
Early on, they bought some very generic risers
Okay.
and realized that wasn't the route to go with.
Okay. Just for longevity and stability and stuff like that, I would assume.
Yes,
Okay, great. Very cool. So, let's see here. Okay, so this looks like intakes. Is that correct?
yes, this is the fresh air intake of that new ASIC room that we had been talking about.
Okay. Wow, that's fantastic. So you're running like a passive intake here. It's just a giant wall of slats sucking in all that air and allowing the exhaust to do the work, which is fantastic. Okay. All right. So what do we got here? It looks like a room. I see some MSIs there on the shelf. So tell me what we got going on.
So on the far left of this picture, you're going to see the exhaust fans.
Okay.
So the first picture that we opened up with, this
Yeah.
would be the total opposite end.
Okay.
And we had this section is open. We do have room for a little bit more expansion in the
Mm-hmm.
GPU area. So that's just we're looking at one of the aisles, the a few 7 or 8 GPU workers closest to us. But as you would get halfway down, you would run into 13 GPU workers.
Okay. Wow. All right, look at this. So this looks awesome, by the way. I love to like walk down this with the lights off. Oh, that'd be so cool. So was this one of the images that you had taken previously just with the lights off, or is this a different room, different area?
So this would be in our 7 and 8 GPU worker section from as you come outside of our office, and this is early in the morning, and I spend a lot of time just walking around enjoying the pretty lights when I can at night.
Who needs Christmas lights when you got a GPU farm? Man, that is great. Okay, so it looks like here we're looking at an MSI rig. Quite a number of cards actually.
Yeah, this is one of our 13 GPU workers, and MSI one was down. So with our YouTube channel, we have a work series, which
Mm-hmm.
is just the behind the scenes of what we do on a day-to-day basis. This was just a photo. This worker kept restarting too often. So we brought it in, took a couple pictures of it, and I think it was power supply that was causing the issue. The
Okay.
fan wasn't turning on the power supply.
Now, I imagine in your situation and at such a large scale, you know, you're spending a lot less time troubleshooting on a minute level and more of a swap out hardware and get this thing back up and running in order to continue profitability. Is that pretty accurate?
It is. You know, you can't really look at things in one. Got to look at it more in the big thing. So if you got a rig that has one worker down versus one that's restarting all the time, well, I'm going to let the rig with one GPU down, and we're going to get the rig that keeps restarting, because every time your workers are restarting, that's time you are not putting coins in the bag.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Okay, so more Christmas lights. I love it. That looks great. So what do you think like a normal temperature is walking through this room here?
On the intakes, if it is 75 outside ambient temperature, we're probably 85 on the fresh air side, the first set of rigs, and then as you get towards the end, we can be upwards of 100 plus.
Wow. That's incredible. Okay, so it looks like we got a giant pile of GPU risers here. When did you guys make the swap over to them?
So probably February or March, we reached out to them. We
Okay.
got a couple samples in,
Yep.
because with us, we aren't going to buy anything, especially large amounts, unless we do a little bit of testing.
Yeah.
So we did some testing, and think they worked out pretty good. So we got some in, and this is one of the things from a home hobby miner. When you
Yeah.
get risers in, you might get 10 in or 15, but seeing boxes of hundreds of risers
That's crazy.
is nuts.
Oh, I can only imagine. When I buy a handful of them, they come in, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many. I can only imagine. I mean, just like you had said, like you're buying these parts in bulk. These look like, I guess these are the version 2s, the ones that came out right before the current ones that are out. And the only reason I know that is because they don't have the GPU riser on them, the picture, and they don't have the 8 capacitors there. But either way, though, that is great. It's got to be quite a tease for you, you know, dealing with this stuff and seeing it all day long, and then come home. Do you want nothing to do with like mining when you come home at the end of the day?
It is interesting. It's a good full solid day at the farm, but I am finding more and more when I get home at the end of the day, we're ready to not be dealing with mining anymore.
Okay, we did not. I think we already we talked about this picture already. That was just a duplicate. We talked about that one. Okay, so we got a network rack here. So are these we got patch panels. I'm seeing some Netgear switches. I assume most of your stuff is it unmanaged switches, or do you actually like have it managed or broken off by VLANs and gone crazy with it?
So we definitely do keep things separated.
Okay.
We've got some managed switches, but over like once we get to this room, we'll do some unmanaged switches here.
Okay.
But we definitely keep all of them separate. So if one switch goes down, it's not going to take down the
Yeah.
entire room or our entire network.
Okay, great. And then do you guys have a network guy on staff, or is that something you guys sub out to a company?
So the networking stuff we do in-house.
Okay, great. All right, we got some more lights here. All right, so we got quite the sunset picture here. So tell me what I'm looking at.
So, well, actually, this is a nice sunrise.
Okay.
This is two rows in that 13 GPU worker section, and that's the exhaust fan that we're looking at.
Oh, wow. Okay, so looking through there, so the sun comes up right in the morning. So I think we're just about towards the end of these. There's some more of those there. We talked about these here. Okay, so tell me what we got here. We got quite a few. We got some i5 6500s. Is that what I'm saying?
Yep, this is what you're seeing. Once again, when we're dealing with this type of scale,
Yeah.
we have, we order quite an abundance. So we've had the largest shortage of hardware, that
Yeah.
we may ever see in our lifetime. Well, when you can get things, you get what you can. And,
Yep.
for inventory purposes and those things, we're always taking pictures. But this was just something cool that I wanted to share with everybody because you don't see pictures like this often.
No, not at all. I mean, it is, usually, as a home miner, you're like, okay, I'm building a new rig. I'm going to buy one, or I got two motherboards. I'm going to buy two, but nothing of this scale. But it makes sense in the current market right now with things, becoming so scarce. I mean, even as things like your 1200 watt HP, server power supplies, granted, I'm super new to mining, but back when I got started a few months back, about 6 months back, those were 35 to 40 bucks. Now they're $100 each. So just things like that have definitely increased in price quite a bit. Okay, so this picture here, I'm seeing a few different things. So let's talk about the rig closest to us. It looks like we have some aftermarket not stock fans. Are these the China ones you had talked about?
Yes. So over time, we have workers that fail, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So we started repositioning, moving some workers around. Well, the rig closest to us is a
Mm-hmm.
13 GPU worker that we were building, and that has all those aftermarket China fans. That's a gigabyte. Those are gigabyte GPUs that those are on.
Okay, so instead of that traditionally has like two fans on it, your smaller ones, you guys remove that fan shroud and then you go ahead. It looks like you have your own kind of setup here, the zip tie maybe, or something, this larger fan here that looks like it's Molex that you guys are slapping on there, and then you're just getting this thing back up and running. Does that sound accurate?
Zip tie that thing right on, power it up, and put coins in the bag. Right.
Dude, I love those. Okay, so those massively long PCI cables, they're awesome. Like it is. Ah, I love them. I love them. I've been looking more and more into learning how to make those myself, only because I strictly do. I hang all my GPUs with my setup, and being able to have that extra length just would improve cable management significantly. So on the next row over, it looks like we have MSIs, and you said what those were, 570s or 580s. And would this be a newer rig that we're building, or is this, what were we doing here that we got a bunch of these MSIs going on?
So we had a bunch of our 4 GB cards where
Okay.
we're not mining offline. So with those we started building some rigs to mine some Ethereum Classic, and I believe that's what the ones on the next table are, the empty rack as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Were some MSIs that we were getting ready to throw together. Once again, we haven't all the GPUs we have are years old. So everyone that's this is something I like to say quite often. I get a lot of flack. Hey, you bought all our GPUs. We can't get GPUs because of you. Well, if you were trying to buy GPUs 2 and 3 years ago and you couldn't get them,
Yep.
then yes, it was us. But
Yeah, it's really interesting because people kind of forget that from a farm perspective, at the end of the day, it's business. So you need to get to, break even as fast as you can. So in this situation, you continue to run these old carts because they're well over profitable. You've hit your break even forever ago, and now it's straight profitability. So, I think that is a big difference between like a farm and a home miner, where a home miner is, okay, I'm selling these because the market's popping right now, and then I'm going to buy the 30 series card. So for you guys, it sounds like there isn't a lot of selling tech and buying tech that occurs from the GPU side of things. Is that pretty accurate?
for us, I mean, these GPUs have been workhorses for quite some time, and there was no need to change it when it was working good.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic. I think I see some U-bit risers there in the background. Got those going on there. So it's good to know. What else do we have here? Is that the last? I think that's the last photo there. Okay, cool. So anything from the far, anything that you think I missed, where you're like, oh, we should have talked about that from the pictures.
We were able to show you kind of some intakes and outtakes, so the
Yep.
air, the fans is always fun to to show people a little bit of power distribution.
Mm-hmm.
I think we hit a lot of the fun things that people really enjoy seeing.
Oh, I mean, it's great. I mean, I love seeing that stuff because it's like me in my little basement here trying to build things out on my own little scale, and now seeing it on a a more enterprise scale, I think is great. So few questions that kind of come to mind is from a staffing side. How many people would you say are on staff, kind of keeping things up and running from a day-to-day perspective?
Okay, that's a great question. Get that one a lot. So there's a large team that it takes to do this, but there's 3 of us currently on staff,
Okay.
playing with all these things.
Wow. Okay. That is great. And a crypto mining farm isn't just anywhere. Like, it's not just like right down the road. Hey, there's one. So for you, it sounded like, you had said that there was one nearby, that had been running, stuff like that. What do you find from a location base is a big deal for you when it comes down to like a mining farm? And the reason I said it is, like, crypto mining farms are not a dime a dozen. Like, they're not, like, at least in the US, from my understanding. Is geolocation a huge factor that you find from a farm? I mean, I actually didn't even ask you, like, where in the US you're located, and that's fine if you don't need to disclose it, but yeah, how does geolocation really come into it?
So for us and for a lot of farms, power is going to be a big factor of where you're located.
Okay.
Having constant, steady power 24/7 all day, every day is very important. And if you can get that, that's going to dictate where you're at. For us, when they started their proof of concept, there just happened to be a building that was already ready. Some
Wow.
places, some farms are building buildings. Well, this is okay. When we say a farm, for us, literally, we're in a chicken coop.
Oh, well, you know
Full
what? But
chicken coop.
wow, that it makes complete sense though. Like that makes complete sense. It was interesting. I was watching the other day a Voscoin video, and he was at a old shipyard, a retired shipyard, and it was just all these buildings that pre-existed, that they were doing there, and so yeah, I can imagine it would be, from a logistical side, it would be really nice to be able to build a building from the ground up, to have everything you would want. But I would imagine from the upfront investment and capital side, buying something that is already out there, that is vacant and empty, is ideal for getting something up and running. So talking about mining farms, is there a lot of collaboration in that industry between mining farms, touring other mining farms and getting ideas and things like that? Or is it very siloed and just kind of like, nope, we don't talk, we don't intermingle, we stay to ourselves? What is that? How is that industry?
So the mining community that we're a part of is a great community. Very, very very, very important to share resources and those types of things. When you get to farming on scale,
Yeah.
at least from what I've seen, I've not been able to tour other facilities. A lot of people are pretty hush hush on the things. I mean, and it's very, very understandable. I mean, there's millions of dollars of equipment. You just don't want people seeing what you do.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine. So from a farm side of things, have you guys started to get in, I guess, the town that you're in, or area? I know some towns have started to kind of be anti-crypto mining farm, just because of the power consumption and the effect on the environment, stuff like that. Has that hit your area quite yet, at all? Rumblings in the town and stuff like that, or no, it's not quite there yet?
Nobody knows. Honestly, we're outside. Our location is outside.
Okay.
So there's just very little people that know what's actually going on.
Okay. Okay. And how has everything in China, if anything, affected you guys, or it really has at this point, with a lot of, there's been a lot of hash rate that has dropped because of everything going on there, and with kind of, has hardware become available that you guys are interested in, or kind of how has China affected you guys, or not at all?
It's been very nice. I mean, for me personally, my rigs have been earning a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
since, China has turned everything off. Same thing with the farm. But the talk about the equipment, the flooding of equipment
Yeah.
making its way, looking for homes. Uh, I just can't believe the amount of people that have been reaching out trying to find homes for
Wow. Okay.
mining equipment.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be fantastic, especially because something like this situation, you're buying in bulk. You're not spending pennies and peanuts. You're spending big money here. And the nice thing is you're getting things at a significantly large discount because they need to move that. It's all assets and they need to get rid of those assets. Like, so because it's just sitting dead weight. So I would imagine your investors are looking at it from the perspective of a prime opportunity, which is great, which is good for you. I mean, that would be fantastic. So I thought a great, place to end things for today is give us a rundown of what a day-to-day looks like for you. When does it start, when does it end, and kind of what are you doing day to day?
Yeah, no. So I'm usually in early, the last part of the night shift,
Okay.
and first thing I'll do is get punched into my workstation and see if there's any workers that are offline.
Okay.
Run through the farm, do some power cycles, some restarts, make sure everything's hashing, and once everything's hashing, I would like to see it. Then I'll start off on other tasks. One of those things is networking our new building that we've got. We actually just set uh, two more 1.5 megawatt transformers. So
Jeez.
there's a lot of other prep work and things like that to do. You got to keep up with the industry. Industry
Mm-hmm.
changes almost daily.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some time spent doing that. Some time spent working on rigs. Uh, it's a busy day. You wouldn't. It's not all looking at mining screens
Mm-hmm.
and those types of things. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Just a lot of grunt work. I mean, building shelves. I don't know how many days it took of just building shelves for that next room.
So, are you guys, you talked about coming in and checking to see what rigs are down and stuff. Are you guys running HIVEOS? You're running Windows? Are you running a proprietary? Kind of what are you guys running there?
So I use, personally HiveOS. We've
Okay.
got our own system that we use there
Okay.
for monitoring things, and it makes it slick.
That's nice.
It's important to be able to, see what you're working with, see what it's doing, and then be
Mm-hmm.
able to find it quickly.
Yeah, I mean it's burn and turn. You gotta take care of it and get it back up and running. I forgot to ask about it, but I thought it'd be interesting. So, for an audience on a farm side of things, um, are you guys doing a lot of overclocking? Like, is it pretty predefined, kind of cookie cutter? Like, okay, these exact cards get this exact overclock settings versus at a home miner, you're kind of tweaking to the individual card. I assume you're just every card that is this make and model gets this overclock setting and you move on. Is that pretty accurate?
Well, so when we're at home, we might deal with 10 gigabytes.
Yep.
Well, majority of those are going to overclock the same.
Yep.
When you've got hundreds or thousands of them, they all take different overclocks. Um, During different times of the year, if it's a little warmer, we'll
Mm.
dial certain rigs back a little bit.
Okay.
Then in the winter, we can crank them up, but we can't just set one overclock for all the gigabytes because we can get better overclocks by separating them out. So we keep the same type of Hynix, GPUs will all be in
Yep.
the same rig and those types of things as well.
Okay. So you keep a lot of the same memory and the same rigs then just to make it a little bit easier with the overclocking side. So that makes complete sense. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, it sounds like you really enjoy what you do, and I mean, that's great. I mean, it's great to take a hobby and a passion and turn it into a career. You can only imagine, as you said, selling internet phones. And you're crypto mining at a farm, which is fantastic. So, before I let you go, which once again, I appreciate it. Those of you guys that don't understand, we've been trying to get this scheduled for quite some time, so I'm very happy that we got to this point. You talked a lot about your YouTube channel and the fact of, you know, it's not just, you know, homegrown hobbyist stuff. You're doing some content at the farm, which I think is fantastic. Where could people go to find that YouTube channel?
Yeah, you gotta head over to NotYourNormalMiner. Spell it all the way out, Not Your Normal Miner, and you'll be able to see all our content there. And the majority of it recently is focused out at the GPU and ASIC farm.
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Well, guys, make sure you go over there. Make sure you subscribe. Check out some of his day-to-day videos, which are always fun. The Worker Work series. He's up to about 32 of those right now. So go out, check those out. I mean, that's the stuff I love to throw on at work and see other people working in that environment. Other than that, guys, I appreciate you guys coming out to check out another episode of Meet the Miner. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And finally, don't forget to subscribe. Take care.